This is DisElectAbility with Autistic VR, the Disability Politics podcast with guest Ciara McCarthy. Let's listen and share and subscribe and follow at Neuro Rainbow Project Online.
Hi, my name's Ciara McCarthy. I'm an award-winning disability activist who's about to talk about inclusive education, but I've also started talking about the general election and why disabled people should get involved in the general election.
In terms of the general election and voting, what are the things that you've been speaking about?
I feel like there's not a lot of information of how to vote, particularly for first-time voters who are disabled. I've spoke about how you can look up like political parties and the candidates and how you can get involved in the political sphere of the general election, and particularly how this is a snapshot that will be very historical for anyone that's watching this.
So it's mainly like you've been focusing on how you can get vote, registering to vote and be a part of that, and how to be involved and understand what decision you're making. So in terms of, as I said to yourself then with that, what are the things that do you think that disabled people might not get in the information about, in terms of, do you think there are some things that aren't easily communicated and accessible in terms of information of trying to get disabled people to vote? And what's the experience about getting disabled people engaged within politics?
So politics is generally inaccessible. A lot of political parties fail to alt text their images. A lot of the campaign is focused on not making it accessible to people in general. And I've looked at a few manifestos and they haven't mentioned any improvements that they want to do for disabled. What might not encourage disabled people to vote. So I'm trying my best to make it much more accessible, doing like easy read versions of how to vote, and making sure that it is understood how you can go and vote, particularly as going to polling stations is not always accessible, as there's a few steps trying getting into the buildings, as a lot of the time they are in schools or in places that are not accessible to disabled population. But I try and make sure that people can.
And in terms of when you said about the manifestos and the political literature and communication information around the political parties being releasing, what are the manifestos that you looked at? And in terms of what you found are the ones that make it most accessible, and what do you find are the issues that you found when you looked at a variety of political parties' manifestos?
All political party manifestos are really long and really hard to understand, but since you can't really pick out some points. But for most of them, they talked about how they want to improve the NHS and stuff like that. But a lot of the time, they're focusing on privatisation of the NHS, education also becoming privatised, and a lot of it is centred around money, which we all know disabled people don't always have a lot of money, as Scott has revealed that we need an extra £350 just to be able to live on the standard as a non-disabled person may have.
Yeah, when you reference the NHS privatisation and education privatisation, what are the manifestos referenced NHS privatisation, or if they might be not explicitly said that, what are the things you found that hinted towards that?
As the Conservative Party is massive on trying to privatise the NHS and education, the Labour Party manifestos, although they don't actually specifically say that they want to privatise the NHS, there's hints towards it within the manifestos. Other parties haven't, and they are for non-privatisation of the NHS, but it's just about how more parties you engage with and what they do, and also not every single candidate and constituency will have the same views as manifestos of either the Conservatives, Labour Party, Green Party. Usually when we're voting in the general election, we're voting for the candidate that will represent our constituency, and they have their own views and their own agendas that they want.
Yeah, and as I said, there's not there's a lot of, in terms of like when you mentioned certain parties like the Labour Party, you hinted that there have been a lot of grey area, and I think that a lot of the disabled activists or disabled voters or have an interest in looking after the minorities of people, and politics of it reflects the minorities of people. Then I think in terms of what governments would spend on the disabled people are likely to need the most government intervention or government spending. And so what, in terms like also if you look about taxes and the financial side of things, do you think that most any of the parties really costed in for the situation that we're in, where we need to, as I said, with the NHS, there's the concerns about privatisation, but do you think the manifestos reflect the more money that we may need to improve the services?
Not from what I've read, that I need to be looking that again, but a lot of the time they are talking about the free market thing and how they want to improve for everyone.
And so, yeah, I guess you were concerned with the free market concerns, and I guess that it assumes as your own political leanings, even though like on social media, you've been quite fair and balanced. How would you describe your own politics?
I'm more left wing. That's generally just because of how my political values and the parties that I do generally vote for. How that my politics is not really involved in whether I just make unbiased discussion points, as people need to hear from someone that's completely unbiased in a situation. I'm more left wing.
And In terms of how your politics is more left-leaning, how does that influence your vote, or rather, what are the things that when you vote in and when you think about who you're going to vote for, what are the things that tend to be the main priorities to yourself of what considering?
For me, about education, so I want education to be free for everyone. I also would like to see more funding towards further and higher education. It's a massive issue that I am an advocate for, but also I am looking for policies that might be benefiting to disabled people, which often is left-wing parties often lean towards that side, and there are a number of parties that do represent disabled people that have it within their policies, and that what they want to bring will change life for disabled people, and there's generally will improve things for disabled people, but also how will change things for students.
And in terms of the parties you feel that could represent or speak for disabled people, who factor in for disabled people in the manifestos, what do you think of the parties that tend to adequately represent and reflect interests of disabled people?
For me, the Green Party, and also in Scotland we have the SNP, and they talk massively about what they would bring to disabled people, and it's more parties need to start bringing this conversation about disability, particularly as the rise of COVID has brought in much more disabled people than you would think, and I really want things to improve for the newly disabled people that have just became disabled due to long COVID, but also having policies that make sure that I can access everyday life, because that's really important to me, and being engaged with the world is how political parties should be reflecting if we do have a small percentage of the votes.
And as you mentioned, the issues I find that the COVID and the poverty that also reflect the things that you can interested in voting for, and you can judge parties on, and the kind of government records on towards. And do you think that there is an issue that in this campaign election that there hasn't been much talk around the coronavirus pandemic, and the both governments in terms of maybe the Welsh, Scottish governments, even though they aren't really directly involved in this election, but in terms of the parties that are standing for election, do you think that, as well as Westminster, do you think there's an issue that we haven't been having conversations around the last 5 years where we had a pandemic, and in what maybe we need to look for in being a bit more compassionate or understanding the future complexities of possible pandemics and increase of conditions like that? Do you think that we need to talk about it?
I think we do need to talk about COVID, as it's still very much here. People are still getting COVID, and there is no COVID precautions in place for people. And as you said, COVID happened nearly 2 years ago, and I'm still in a political conversation that we should actually bring it up, as a lot has changed within the 5 years, which means we need to talk a lot more about how political parties or even the governments in charge should handle health situations, as this was a massive wave that impacted so many people and is still impacting people to this day.
As I said, that there's a lot of things that could be learned in terms of the response of the pandemic. What are the things that you would like parties to listen to in terms of disabled voices like yourself who have concerns about how the pandemic was dealt with? What are the lessons do you think they need to learn?
I think that how easily you can become disabled, I feel like that's a conversation that people tend to ignore, but you can become disabled at any age. I think COVID-19 particularly made that very obvious that you can just become disabled without any support from the government or without any understanding from even NHS, due to the fact that NHS was underfunded and struggling with such a massive situation that was happening globally. But also, I think me to this conversation of and disabled people having access like sick life, like public services, universities are not successful, and there's a lot of discussion around how, particularly the ticketing office situation that happened a year ago, and how people had to advocate for the government not to remove it. That was such a thing that should have never been discussed. Being able to see the impact of that conversation, which is still going on today, where people are talking about how political parties have impacted decision making that disabled people aren't involved in, and I would love to see more disabled people involved in these conversations.
How do you feel that the government in Hollywood, your local government, where they got devolved powers in terms of like health education, etc., how do you think they dealt with the pandemic?
I think the government did a very good job in handling the pandemic. However, there's still issues that are happening to this day. Disabled people who have or again COVID, there's no safety precautions in place. It's still very much a fear to get COVID, particularly if you're chronically ill or disabilities that are making you compromised. Then there's a big fear still happening, and as COVID is still facing people and it's not gone 100%, like we're not out of the clear yet. I think we need to have this conversation. Just because COVID-19 isn't impacting people as it used to, it's still impacting people in a significant way.
She said we need to have certain conversations. What type of conversations would you like to, in terms of addressing the kind of realities?
I think we need to see more first-person perspectives of COVID-19, particularly long COVID, because people still don't understand what long COVID is. It's affects from various different ways, and there's that conversation of masking. Should we all be masking again? It's an interesting conversation to have. And for a lot of disabled people, that is the conversation that is happening to this day, that they have had to tell their families to continue masking, and they are speaking out about continuing the use of masking as they are. And the government should be opening these conversations with disabled. I only know one person, but there are hundreds of people that have got long COVID. They are still grasping the fact that they're disabled, and I think it's a conversation we should have in everyday life that you can
Yeah.
become disabled at any point.
And with that, it's that thing that, as I say, like now, it seems that in terms like the reality of how the world of people who haven't been really affected by the coronavirus today, in terms of having long COVID and have the privilege of not really being medically affected by it, or not having any relatives or anyone close to them who are suffering with long COVID, and the impacts it can have with their own health, and in terms of maybe the loss of family for it, or in terms of that, do you think that there is an issue with that we have stopped mandating that we should be like testing people, still having a test for COVID, and actually making sure that data is recorded of how many people do have COVID, and getting like the geographical field of it, where it is and if it's mutating?
Yeah, I think we have evidence that COVID has slowly, but I think there should be more COVID testing. I don't think we need it more on a national scale, but having COVID tests become more available to people And that would ease a lot of disabled people's fears of going out and doing things, is that if they're banks they can test themselves and tell them, because people are now having to pay for COVID tests, and that shouldn't be the.
And like you said about how you wouldn't also, in terms of this stuff, wouldn't have more disabled people involved in a conversations. And right now you're like mobilising disabled people to vote and making sure people are aware of what they need to be required to vote, including new voter ID, and actually know how to make sure they can access it. So what are the things that we could see being done to actually get more people represented in politics who are disabled and of other minorities?
So I was the the voter ID situation. A lot of people that I've spoken to, both at work and outside, nobody has to have voter ID, which is incredibly alarming, considering that the government had introduced it and there's no awareness that it is happening. And for a lot of disabled people, they might not have ID, and they don't know that even your blue badge is a voter ID, but brings in complications as well, because you need your blue badge for your car as well for your disabled parking. But you can get a thing called a voter authority card, which the government can give you, and you have until the 26th to apply for that. And that is basically just confirms your identity, and it's free and it's given by the government. You can also get a citizen's card, which NUS is given away for free, but students and young people can go and apply for it. So it's more awareness that there's a voter ID situation happening in the UK, and that they need to bring the voter ID. But also that's not the only way, via postal and by proxy as well.
And in terms of the issue of getting more people who are disabled elected into politics or involved into politics, whether that is more traditional means of getting involved in politics or alternative means of activism and being like involved in certain campaigns and sets. What are the things that we could do to get more disabled people and often other minorities involved with politics?
I think we should have much more awareness that you can go and vote, not vote, but also stand in elections. There have been a few disabled people that I'm aware of that are standing in this general election. There's 2 Green Party members in Scotland that are running for candidacy, but also there isn't a lot of awareness on how you can stand. Also, you don't need to stand as an MP or MSP. You can also become a councillor. There are lots of organisations that do this type of work. One of them is called DisElectAbility. It's an organisation within Scotland to have these type of conversations, and they went to the Scottish Parliament to do a wee bit of a talk about how deaf and disabled people can get involved in politics. But we need more organisations like these around the UK. Although it's great having those conversations and bringing awareness to it, we need organisations that be able to support disabled people into politics. But most disabled people don't really know about politics due to maybe not having a great education. There needs to be a lot more awareness of how politics impacts their life, and in terms of activism, like getting involved in your local party. That can be any party as long as you're participating, and they have their own disabled groups within that, which you can engage with, and they help people become a bit more politically active in like any political, like council elections, local elections, and of course.
Then you said that not enough people know or have enough education on politics and how we get involved and such, and in more informed ways of how the political system works. How do you feel that when you was in school in terms of own political education? Did you think that your school had good education on politics, and are there things that you would like to see the education system improving to educate the future generations about knowing how politics works?
In terms of my own education, I was very particularly aware of how the system worked. Although bus past the post and a complicated system for a lot of young people to get their heads around, I think there's a lot more engaging ways that you can get students to understand how they can go and vote, how the political parties work, how seats are divided. Getting that covered in the first 2 years of your education can be quite overwhelming, but being able to get them to vote, like how, if you are going to vote for a party, how will you vote for that party? How bus festivals, so that there's ways to engage students more in an interactive way. But in terms of like education, I think more education needs to integrate politics into their curriculum, or have a much more intensive view into it, because politics, whether people like to admit it or not, is a massive part of who we are and how we engage with the world. It also impacts how the country is laid out for the next 5 years, and how what policies will be impacting certain minorities or the general population. So it's getting students to understand this, how important it is for them.
And how did you become interested in politics?
So I've always liked the idea of like politics as a whole. I think it started in high school. I feel like the idea of like political parties and how political parties work. And then I decided last year that I want to like get involved in policy making and stuff like that. So sparked my love for politics, and I love general activism and politics stuff because it's a very interesting conversation to have with people, is how people's minds work and how it impacts our country, and how almost 30 years ago different policies had impacted us in certain ways, and I love the history of it and how relevant it is to this modern day.
And in terms of like the policies that you hope to like get involved in making and informing, what are the ones that you tend to focus on or you may be involved?
So I've been involved like a lot of conversations around transitioning from school, for general transition in life. That is something that I love, and I want to be able to get that conversation starting around how young people can transition at any stage of um but I'm also just really interested. That's kind of why I want to go into policy making, because I want to be able to bring some change or improve our education system.
It's something that like you would rather be in policy making rather than policy voting in terms of like standing yourself as a disabled candidate. And in a sense, I respect that. But do you think that moving on to the different side issue before we turn to that, is there anything that you find would be barriers to actually getting involved in standing as like a political candidate, or what do you see are maybe the barriers that disabled people may have from getting into parliaments? And do you think that there's any like accessibility issues involved with actually being involved in, like the representation of being in a political house?
I do see quite a lot of not in terms of politics as a whole, but I've seen a lot of people that are getting involved in politics learn about their rights as a disabled person. I feel like it really connects people and understanding like how their rights work, how they can get involved in general life, and in terms of being a candidate. And I feel like there'll be a lot of ableism people may face, and that will be something that will face anyone. Any minority will get some sort of prejudice against them, but it's being able to have people become open-minded and have that awareness that disabled people can go and become incredible politicians or incredible policymakers and incredible civil servants. It's all about the awareness and disability awareness of people, which may make people not want to stand as a candidate, but we definitely should see more disabled people involved in politics as a whole.
And what could be the ableism that could be put towards somebody who is publicly open in terms of the space of politics?
I think there's this fear that disabled people can do what they want to do, and there's that general ableism that I've seen all over primary, and I've seen it faced by multiple friends of mine who are disabled who are involved in political parties, and it's not that they wouldn't be discouraged from becoming a political candidate, but it's about how they can mentally and physically handle that, as it can be incredibly draining to be faced with a lot of prejudice. And I feel like that would be the case for anyone. But until we have people become a bit more accepting, I think prejudice will always be here, and standing up to it and being able to stand for what you believe.
And I know, like, one of the things you're quite passionate about it and talking about is also the rights of other people as like you're part of the community yourself. How have you found that in terms of what's like coming out for politics right now in the United Kingdom? There's a lot of issues around transphobia and stuff like that as well in mainstream politics. How have you been finding that in this period?
I think, particularly in this modern day and age, the big conversation is about trans rights, and it's a very frustrating conversation to have. Is within our media, there's ableism, there's transphobia, there's homophobia, and I have seen the impact it's had on policies over in Scotland, and I think that might influence people on how they, particularly as I believe Rishi Sunak wants to create single-sex bathrooms, which is going to impact so many trans people from coming out and feeling comfortable within themselves to go to the toilet that they deserve to go. It shouldn't be a political issue. It happened back in the 90s where people and like gay people, and if that type of conversation is repeating over and over and over again, or people don't like a particular minority, so there's a lot of targeting towards them. But disappointing, and I don't think there's anything I can say that can really express how I feel and how exhausting it can be to have those conversations.
Yeah, because I think in terms like when you mentioned about the issues within Scotland, I think that was a part of the downfall of Yousaf's leadership as under Youth government, as well as the British courts seized powers over vetoing that legislation about that gender recognition act reform within Scotland to be no trans.
Yeah, I think particularly in this general election, there's a lot of awareness, particularly for trans individuals who are voting this year, that they need voter ID, but they need a voter ID that does not reflect them, because a lot of voter ID has a gender marker on them, which I always recommend go and get a voter authority certificate that doesn't have a gender marker. But I think it definitely was the downfall where people in Scotland wanted trans people to, and non-binary people to have the right to self-identify, but the UK government blocked it. But also brings up an interesting conversation in terms of Scottish independence and like how Scottish independence works here, and there's a driving force of Scottish independence now in this general election that I've seen in the past few years. So everything is all interlinked, whether we might admit it or not. Everything is very interlinked in how we view the world and how politics shapes how we view people and discussions.
When you mentioned about Scottish independence, it's a thing that the polls are definitely hinting at. The Scotland makes things having more Labour seats than SNP seats, and that the kind of support of the SNP might go down. Kind of like there's a lot of hints within how the election's been reported that there's less focus on the issue of Scottish independence, and I think rather there's more concerns about addressing more issues like the cost of living crisis in terms of the NHS, within both Scotland and UK nationally. Those tend to be issues being picked up at the minute, and it's not, I think, vastly something that being at the forefront of the SNP campaign as such. I think they seem to be focusing more getting on to the issues that kind of, as I said, like the cost of living and such, and issues around Brexit. Do you think that is how it's picturing out in Scotland?
So I think the political landscape in Scotland will be very interesting to see in this general election. As a lot of people do hold the view that the SNP wasn't in great leadership for the past while, and how that's going to be reflected is going to be very interesting. I don't know how the vote's going to be. Some people are not happy with the SNP due to cuts of education and more focus on the cost of living and not really handling the issues in terms of education and strike. And it's about how things have impacted how people view the SNP, and I honestly cannot tell you how it's going to look.
In terms of like those issues, that is something that maybe yourself would be thinking about when it comes to yourself at the ballot, that record and that conversation about the constitutional changes. As you said about the concerns about the cuts to the NHS within Scotland, is that something that you yourself are concerned about, and you hoping that in terms of like the NHS and to the education, is it something that you would hope that can start to take more priority?
I think any government that comes in, I think it should be focused on education and healthcare, as those are the two main priorities that I see people talking a lot now. As the NHS is crumbling under funding, and the waiting lists are getting longer, and there's no support for them to sustain themselves. I feel like those two it should always be at the forefront of everyone's minds, and that like the landscape is changing, because as colleges and universities face more how that's going to impact students get into other areas of work and life.
When you mentioned about education, there's a lot of focus also maybe healthcare in terms of like mental health care, whether it's been Labour, maybe the SNP, but I know the Green Party of England and Wales and that, the Liberal Democrats, have had policies about ensuring that there are mental health professionals and counsellors within each of the parties listed. Do you think they are delivering the good policies for young people?
I have actually read into the mental health policies of parties, but that's something I might do. But I think in terms of the Green Party here in Scotland and the SNP and also other parties, I think a big thing that they'll have a big conversation around is mental health, particularly after COVID-19 and how that's impacted students. I think there should be more mental health professionals, both in schools but also higher in further education, as we know that students are most impacted by mental health. And we should see that in the Scottish Government's work, hopefully. But we should definitely have much more of a focus on mental health and how that's had a significant impact on our students today. And maybe having much more of a focus on how CAMS works and like how CAMS doesn't work as a organisation, but having it restructured and maybe more focused on helping young people, trying to give them a cure, give them more support and more understanding of their mental health, particularly as a lot of disabled people might have faced with CAMS that they almost equate the mental health issue with a disability, which isn't the case. Mental health and disabilities can be very separate, I think, but we definitely need more mental health awareness.
For people who might not be familiar with CAMS, what are the things that, for people that they do and what was different from it then in terms of it's evolved within our nation? Scotland will be governed and regulated by the Scottish Government and funded like that. What do you think the differences that maybe people aren't familiar with between England, Wales, etc.? And what are the things that, yes, it does, and the things that the main problems and the things you would like to see changed with that?
If you don't know what CAMS is, the Child Adolescent Mental Health Service, and any young person from I believe 9 to 18 can go and get support from CAMS. They are designed to help young people with their mental health issues. However, there isn't very much differences between CAMS in England, Wales and Scotland. From what I'm aware, I've heard the same stories happen in both Scotland that have happened in Wales, have happened in England as well. And it's definitely, it was not working. I went to CAMS when I was younger and I don't think it really helped. I've had friends who went to CAMS and they said they didn't really help because they're more focused on trying to help one aspect of your mental health when they should be focusing on other areas. But also, I think we just need a revamp of mental health, particularly if there's a mental health crisis happening, and we need more support, we need more understanding. I think if CAMS works with the NHS thing, there's waiting lists. That means that disabled or anyone in general are on a waiting list for a while, won't get the support that they need until maybe they turn 10, can't get help because they're an adult. And it's about understanding that there's waiting list, and that's something that we should also bring awareness to, that because the NHS is so underfunded, there's so many waiting lists, and that means that people that need the support I will miss out on it because they get transferred to the adult, and that's a transition in itself that isn't great and is not very successful, as there's no longer that support that they need, and they have to navigate an entire system. But when they do get the support, they've already handled their own mental health issues by going private. And mental health services should be available to anyone that needs it, and being able to be on a waiting list for 5-6 years and not being able to access that support by the time you turn 16 shouldn't be the case. And I think we just need more services are more accessible to people, but also I don't undermine their mental health issues.
Yeah, so it seems for yourself the thing as focus on a policy for young people from when they are transitioning from like teenagers or to into adulthood, that but if years of becoming an adult and acquiring new responsibilities and independence, especially reflecting it from perspective of a disabled person. It's something that I guess one of the things that policy would focus on is making sure that people can access services when they transitioning from childhood to adulthood, and it's not having to go through a whole nother system of being disconnected from having a mental health professional because they're not eligible for that mental health service, and they having to reach out and wait for a period before going to another system completely because of the age divide between 18 and 18 were.
There needs to be a transition period. I think the age out comes while they're on the waiting list. There should be a process in place that makes sure that they do get the mental health service
Yeah.
instead of on another waiting list. Like maybe there should be someone that does see them before they turn 18 and see what support they actually need, and then they get forwarded on to another service.
And it's like, as you hinted before early on, that one of the things that any government regards of in terms of where they are within the United Kingdom, they would have to face the problem of actually looking at the private healthcare system as not lots of people in terms of getting a counselling or whatever, relying on going to private therapists or relying on charity support from organisations like Mind.
Yeah, I think there's lots of organisations that are particularly great in raising awareness for deaf people. So there's Deaf Charity, there's Deaf Rainbow, there's so many deaf organisations. However, I don't think there's a lot of disabled organisations that I'm aware of. Also, maybe more of a promotion of other mental health services that are made to support people. But if we go move towards a privatisation of mental health services, then the people that do this cannot go and get that support. So it's about how do we navigate the mental health crisis.
You have more left-leaning political views. For you, it is a concern about how dependent people are on the charity sector in terms of access and support. And I guess you probably find it is quite a muddling maze of when you go into an NHS services and having to be signposted to different charities or different things within the private sector, and that within the public state sector, that there's nothing linking things up or making it easier for disabled people or people in need of any services whatsoever to find in the community what they need.
A need of sending people to charities doesn't work, and it doesn't, and that transition for any person can be very overwhelming, and expecting them to almost know where they have to go, how they are going to get that support. I think there should be a gradual transition for mental health services, and in fact, not just mental health services, but this should be expanded to every single service within the NHS, of that transition from young child services to adult services, because there's a big drop off in between and they don't know how to navigate where they're going, who to contact, how to simply just get the care that they need.
Would you like to see, is there any specific thing that you think would be great to actually link all that transition period up? Is there any main policy that you would introduce around that?
I think we just need more funding in the mental health area. We need more funding in the NHS. I think that will tackle some of the issues, but also have a policy that ensures that if there is a transitional period between child services to adult services, that the introductory period of them getting used to where they're going, who to contact. There's a lot of waiting and trying to get people to stuff, and it can be very overwhelming as a disabled person. to go through that process, but not understanding why you're going through that process. And yeah, I think there just needs to be something in place to make sure that people can access the services that you need to access.
With the general election, if like as some polls hint at, Labour, quite a sizable Labour majority, and as you hinted earlier on, there are still concerns about the state of privatisation within the NHS, and in terms of whether how things will be funded on trans issues and such. How are your feelings about if we did have that majority Labour government, and what are your concerns, and what are the things that you think realistically could change, or what are the things that you could expect that won't be the things that change?
So I think if we think about things that I want to see changed within this country, I would love to see benefits being changed a little bit. There's a lot of propaganda around the fact that people on benefits are just schooners that want to take the government money, but not acknowledging that we actually do need that money, and it's created this idea that because we can't work, that we are taking this money for a game, which we're not. But I think that's something that the majority government, whoever comes in, can tackle. But also I think we just need more funding in general, and I think whether they do that by increasing tax, need more money in areas that do desperately need it, like education, NHS. This shouldn't be things that people should be arguing against that don't need that money. They do need that money, and I think everyone just wants better understanding of disability, better understanding of general population, not just disability, but LGBT rights and trans rights, like the such as that we do not make it easier for people of colour to access.
From your perspective, it's like they may have to do the glamorous thing of raising taxes, which, something people deserve a level of honesty and reality of how are we going to fund actually seeing realistic, tangible change that people do want. And I know you've been like watching election 7 different bits from social media. You follow Simple Politics, who summarise things up quite simply. What have been your highlights and the lowlights of you seen from this election, from like the different parties and different campaign bits you might have seen online?
I don't want to influence people's votes, but I have been really enjoying the approaches that the different parties taken. I think they're appealing to a younger generation, which is so much what we need, because we know that the older generation are more likely to vote, and because of that, there's always a focus on the older generation, but I'm loving that political parties are shifting their view to young people, because young people are the ones that are less likely to go and vote. Students need to vote, disabled people need to vote, and I think I'm really enjoying this shift that they've created, and targeting the people that need that shift. I think before it was all very much wordy, too much jargon, people didn't really understand, but now it's changed and I'm really excited for it.
And what like the type of videos you've been seeing online, as you might be not seen some of them, but for anybody who might not be been familiar with it, what are the things that you find that on social media are really targeted towards the younger voters?
I think they are using TikTok, which is very interesting, because TikTok is used by 16 to 18-year-olds, and beyond that, so like that section of young people are using TikTok that can go on casserole, 30s and beyond who do use TikTok, and I think they're using propaganda in a very smart way. Like, I'm sure people have seen the TikTok where Miss, these are the things that Labour government haven't done, and then the Labour government cut that and said put their bit of how they're gonna change the government, and I was very interesting. I was like, wow, that was quite good marketing. Some of them are using Taylor Swift as a marketing point, which is very interesting. Because Taylor Swift is in the UK, she won't be when the general election is happening. So that was very interesting to see, like, political parties. They've been using marketing in a very different way than they used to, and it's very interesting how they're playing it.
Yeah, because some of them could be goofy to some people, Liberal Democrats have been doing like all different wacky stunts where the leader has been jumping into different waters, down different slides and whatever. And I think as the Labour Party with Ed Miliband, he's been using it to push towards that message of GB energy, and didn't have us seen across social media. A lot of people doing goofy memes with Rishi Sunak and his lack of a satellite dish going up.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting how I think it's going to influence votes, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
As someone a content creator, it's interesting to see how they're using social media.
And is there anything that you haven't said or you want to say already on this podcast?
I think go and vote on the 4th of July. Encourage your friends, encourage your family, go and vote, go to the polling stations on the 4th of July. If you cannot go on the 4th of July, go and get by proxy or postal vote, which you can apply for on the 19th of June. And if you need a voter authority card, go and get a citizen's card that the NUS have for free, but also go and get authority citizens national authority voter card, but the government gives you for free.